Okay.
Hello, this is Jay Spillers, and welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, author, and teacher, Jay Spillers. My special guest today is Sharon Milliman. Sharon, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me. I've had 4 near-death experiences, and the first one happened when I was 13. I drowned in a pool, and then the second one happened in 2005, and that was from a lightning strike. And then the third one happened in 2016 from surgery, and the fourth one happened in 2017 from adverse reaction to medication. So that's pretty much my life.
Yeah. So maybe we'll just start with the first one and just go through each one. What happened when you were 13 with that near-death experience?
Well, we had just moved here from Chicago, and we were new in the area, and my parents wanted us to get involved in extracurricular activities. So they took us to the Y, and they wanted us to learn how to swim. So we took swimming lessons at the Y, and my instructor was trying to teach us how to dive head first this way, into the 10-foot section of the pool. And I was terrified. I stood back and I watched all the other kids doing it. And they were going in and coming out, and everybody was fine. But I just had this feeling, and I could not do it. And he told me that it was my turn to get up there, and I couldn't do it. And he said, if you don't do this dive, I will throw you in. And he grabbed me around the waist and he threw me into the water. And when he did that, I panicked. And I don't know how long it lasted. I know it was probably a very short time, but it seemed like forever for me. I was struggling to breathe, and I'm going down. I went down, and I'm laying on the bottom of the pool. And I look up, and I could see the water rippling on the top, and I could hear people screaming. Now, mind you, I'm under 10 feet of water. So I could hear people screaming, and I could see everybody running around the pool. And I saw my mom in the balcony over on the 3-foot section end of the pool. That's where the parents sat. And she was leaning over the banister, and she was screaming, and she just had this horrified look on her face. Then I heard a lady who was taking care of the little babies in the 3-foot section of the pool, and I heard her say, "Bob, go in and get her." She yelled it, and I could hear it. And I looked at him. It was like having a big panoramic view all the way around the pool. I could see everybody's reactions and what was going on. And he was just frozen, just frozen solid. He couldn't move. And while all of this was going on, there was this beautiful, brilliant white light. And at first I thought it was a light bulb. And I thought to myself, what is a light bulb doing in the pool? That's got to be kind of dangerous. But I didn't know what that light was. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But it was it was a brilliant white, but yet it didn't hurt my eyes. And I was really drawn to it. It was like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to go. I was drawn to go into that light. I could feel the love coming out of that light. And I really, I wanted whatever that light was. And I didn't know at the time what it was. I had no idea. then all of a sudden I hear just as well, that light was about this far from touching me. And I heard what sounded like a metal door slam, and it echoed. And then the light was gone. I mean, instantly the light was gone. And I remember feeling this horrible pain in my chest. And what had happened was the lifeguard that was in the middle of the pool with the not the teenagers, the older kids was in the 10-foot section. This was like the middle-aged kids. He's the one that jumped in. And when he did, he was doing CPR and pulling me over to the side and trying to, getting me to breathe again. And that's the pain that I felt when I came back from wherever this light was at.
So when you were in the pool and you could see everybody around you, was your soul looking from the bottom of the pool, or was it like floating above the pool? When you could see everything and hear people.
I don't, it was like above me, but not, it was on the same level as the people were. So I could see close-up visions of the people's faces. I could see the kids running around and screaming, but it was over top of me, but not like in the ceiling looking down, if that makes sense. It was maybe the pool level. I don't know.
So you did feel like you were out of your body, though, Like
yeah. Oh yeah. I felt no pain. I felt no fear. I felt nothing. I thought the people who drowned would be cold. And here I'm laying on the bottom of the 10-foot pool. I mean, right on the bottom. And I didn't feel anything. I wasn't scared. I felt no pain. And it was like, I knew I wasn't in my body, but I didn't understand at 13 what was going on. I was confused about it. And after we left the place, my mom never talked to me about it. I think she was just so terrified of the experience of watching this happen. I didn't know how to tell her what I experienced, and nor did she know how to talk to me about it.
So when you drowned, was it sort of like a few seconds of complete terror, and then all of a sudden it just changed?
Yes.
And became more peaceful?
Yes.
Because
I was struggling.
I've heard of a lot of other people
at the beginning, and then all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. I heard of a lot of other people that have drowned that say you get like a few seconds of terror, and then all of a sudden it gets really peaceful and more calm. So when you went into the light, did you feel any kind of love or peace coming from the light, or feelings of joy?
Well, I did actually, but I didn't go into the light. I couldn't tell if it was coming down to me or I was going up to it. I didn't have, only thing I knew is that it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and closer and closer and closer to me. So I could have been leaving and going up to it, or it could have been coming down to me. I don't know. But yes, I did feel the incredible warmth and protected and loved. Yes, I did feel love, incredible love. But what I kept noticing was this light is so brilliant, but it doesn't hurt my eyes. And I felt cozy and kind of like instead of being underwater dead, I was wrapped in this blanket. And, there was not one bit of fear, not one bit of pain, nothing. It was incredibly peaceful and it was amazing, but I had no idea what it was
Did it sort of
that I
feel,
was experiencing.
yeah, did it sort of feel like when you're a small child, a parent wrapping themselves around you when you're upset or scared or something and just comforting you?
Yeah, yeah, it did. I remember the shock of him throwing me in and taking in tons of water. I mean, every time I would go down and come back up, and it was like 2 or 3 times I would go down and come back up, and I'm fighting the water, and he's just standing there, and I'm taking in all this water, and then the next thing I know, I'm down on the bottom of the pool, and I did feel that incredible sense of protection and warmth and peace. I mean, the terror was gone by that point,
Did
and the pain that I was feeling was gone at that point.
did did the light communicate anything to you, or
No, I just felt love coming out of it. It didn't say anything to me that I can remember. If it did, I don't remember. Um, but what I do remember is that it being this close to my face. And I wanted to go with this light. I wanted to go into this light, whatever this light was. I wanted to go into that light. But that was the time when I heard that metal door slam and it echoed. It made an echoing sound. And then I felt this horrendous pain, and the light was gone. I mean, just that fast, it was gone. And that's when the other guy, the other lifeguard or teacher, was doing the CPR and getting me to breathe again. And I remember coughing up tons of water, throwing up.
did that experience stay with you for quite some time, to come?
Yes, it's never left me. Even to this day, I have a real problem with water in my face. I can't, even taking a shower, I have to I can't, if I get water in my face, I do not swim. I make sure if I'm in the pool or at the beach, I can put my feet on the bottom. I know where I'm at. There's none of this 10-foot swimming and not knowing where the bottom is. So yes, that part of it has stayed with me. The light part of it, I did not know what that light was, or what that whole thing was about, how it was possible to be under 10 feet of water and still be able to see and hear everything everybody was doing and saying. I didn't understand any of that until I was much older, and had another experience.
Well, what
And
happened?
then it was like,
Yeah. What happened with your second near-death experience?
well, every other year, um, I had lightning strikes. What happened, but it wasn't my first one. I've had 4 lightning strikes. 2 was ball lightning and 2 was bolt lightning. And it was the 4th one. It was every other year until 2005, when I was talking on a cordless phone outside, sitting on the back steps. It started to rain. And I didn't know, I was on a cordless phone, not a, like the kind that you hang on the wall. It has a cord. This was it wasn't a cell phone. We didn't have cell phones back then. It was just a regular cordless phone. And I was married to an electrician at the time, and I asked him if he had just got home from work, and I said, can I talk on this phone sitting here while it's raining? And because I didn't know whether it would be safe or not. He said, yeah, you'll be fine. Doesn't have a cord. You'll be all right. So I was sitting there, and then I heard this like thunder rumbling in the distance. And then all of a sudden I hear a loud crack, and I saw the lightning bolt come out of the sky, and it hit my right arm. And once it hit me, it traveled underneath the house. We had this transformer that was right in front of our house, and it just blew the transformer to pieces. But I remember there were black char marks on the concrete steps where I was sitting. The phone was charred. It was totally destroyed. It was cooked. But after I felt the lightning hit my arm, I felt this burning, searing, agonizing pain. And then the next thing I know, my spirit just pops up out of my body, and I'm not in pain anymore. There's absolutely no pain. I mean, this whole situation happened so quickly. I didn't have time to think about anything. And so my spirit comes out of my body, and I'm dead in the backyard next to the stairs. But it didn't register in my head. It was a very strange, confusing couple of minutes that I'm about to tell you about. But anyway, so I'm walking up the stairs, and I go into my house, and I'm looking around. And at this point, I had no idea that I was dead at all. And I knew that something had just happened, but I didn't know, I didn't know that I had died. So I'm standing in my kitchen, and everything had this burnt gold look to it. And I look at the curtains, and I notice that the curtains are not my curtains. And I thought, well, that was really strange. Then I go into the dining room, and I notice that it's my house. I can get around in it. I know where the rooms are at, but nothing in the house was my stuff. The furniture in the dining room was not my stuff. So I thought, I was so confused. I didn't know I thought this was the weirdest thing. And then I went from the dining room into the living room. And again, the furniture wasn't mine. And I knew that my family was home, but there wasn't anybody here. I couldn't see anybody. And I heard this sound. It sounded like an old time radio show playing, like something you'd hear in the Waltons when you're watching the Waltons. But I couldn't find that sound, or where that sound was coming from. I didn't understand. And I started to panic. I was like, okay, I have no idea what's happening here. What is going on? And I started to cry. I was stressed beyond. I was just really upset. Then all of a sudden, this huge, formless, loving presence that I recognized instantly as God, but he had no form. And the love that poured out of him was just so, it was as immense as he was immense. He was huge. And I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't, afraid. And then it was the next thing I know, we didn't go up, we didn't go down, we went sideways. And we started moving very, very quickly through these pink and gold clouds. They were absolutely beyond beautiful. And I just kind of melted. I felt like again, the blanket thing, I felt wrapped up tight, like in his arms. And we were just traveling at great speed through these pink and gold clouds. Then we get at the end of the clouds, there's this magnificent garden. And were standing like just at the very entrance of the garden, like right at the very beginning of it. And these two young men stepped forward to greet me. And at first I thought they were angels because of the way they were dressed. They had this ivory linen clothing, and they had curly, long hair like mine. And it was my color, but their hair was darker with this color running through it. And it was real curly. And I thought for a minute, oh my God, I know you. I know who you are. They weren't angels. They were my two brothers who had died when they were babies. And we had this amazing family reunion. It was just beyond. It was like, I kept telling them, Dad would be so proud of you. When they smiled, they looked exactly like my dad when my dad was a young man. And I just kept saying it over and over. Dad would be so proud of you. They were so beautiful. And, but they were the ones that had to tell me that I had died, because I didn't know. Even at that point, I didn't know. And once they told me, it was like, oh, wow, I can do this. Everything was so beautiful. And I felt such love and acceptance like I'd never felt in my life, ever. And it was just, the colors were so rich and so vibrant. And I heard birds singing. And it was, if you take the most beautiful spring day and multiply it by 10 bazillion, or what, if that's even a number, but, that's what it felt like, the 75 degrees, no humidity. It was so beautiful and so perfect. So that was the beginning of it. I heard music.
So when you saw God, was it like a being of light? Because a lot of people describe, like, I saw a being of light. It kind of has sort of a human form, generally speaking, but it's like just a being of light. You can't really see like a face or anything, specific features. Just a sort of human, but just like a light shaped in like a human form of some sort.
No, he was totally formless at the beginning. I had my life review. He was formless. It was like he was beside me, and I knew he was beside me, and I could feel him, but I couldn't see him at the beginning. I saw him later on in the near-death or in the experience, but at the beginning, he was this huge. He was, I don't know how I knew he was so big, but he was huge. And his love was just as huge as he was. And it was, it took away every fear, every piece of anxiety. And all I felt was love and acceptance. And then my brothers. And when I'm talking to my brothers, he moves, this big, loving, formless presence moved from behind me to beside me. From beside me to behind me. I'm sorry. And then I had my two brothers on either side of me. And then I had my life review. And this big, loving presence was behind me still. And I knew it was God because of the love that was coming from him. And so after I have my life review, we're walking in the garden and I see Jesus, and Jesus comes over and he tells me that, and my brothers disappear. And he's telling me that he loves me and that he's going to be with me and not to be afraid. Well, I didn't realize at the time that meant I was coming back here. I thought it meant, there was more, something more was going to happen. I'm not to be scared, because Jesus was going to be right there. So I went from, Jesus walked me over to this beautiful wooded glen. And there was a log. There was a stream. I saw the stream. and it sparkled like diamonds, like a million diamonds in this beautiful stream. And then beside that, there was this log that was laying down. And I sat on the end of the log. There was a man sitting on the other end of the log. And that was God. That huge loving presence was gone now. And he was sitting next to me in a person's form. I could see him. Jesus walks away, and I'm sitting there and I'm talking to God. And he looked like a person. And I could see his face, I could see his features. And I'm sure that the face that I saw was the face he wanted me to see, because God, God is, he's spirit. He can make himself to be anything he wants. He created everything. He can make himself to appear as a burning bush, or as a goat, or as a tree, or as a person. Whatever he chooses, he created all of it. He can be anything. So he's sitting there and he's talking to me, and he's this beautiful man. And he had the bluest eyes I could ever. His eyes were just blue, crystal blue. And he had curly, short, collar length hair, dark hair. And he started talking to me, and he asked me, what would you do if it was just me and you? And I was totally clueless. I was like, what? I had no idea what to say. So he asked me again, what would you do if it was just me and you? And I said, I don't understand. And so he gets up and he says, come with me. And I said, okay. So we go walking further into the wooded glen, and there's this clearing, and he kind of waves his hand. And when he does, it's like he unzipped the sky, and I could see the vastness of the universe. I saw planets and stars and rainbow colored gases, but I noticed it was huge. It was really, really big, and there was no people, no cars, no houses, no trees, nothing. It was just all of that. And I've never really been a space person. So I looked at him and I said, no, I don't think so. Because if it's all of that and just me and you, after the first 10 minutes, you would be so sick of me with all my questions and my chatter, and you wouldn't like me anymore. So I don't think so. And he just threw his head back and he laughed. And when he did, his eyes just twinkled. He looked like he had diamonds in his eyes, and he laughed. And when he laughed, I started laughing. It was very infectious, very contagious, his laugh. And so I was like, I started laughing. And then I thought to myself, oh my gosh, Sharon, what is wrong with you? You just told God no. Who does that? But I think he was, he knew I had no clue what he was trying to get me to understand. So we went back to the glen, and we sat back down on the log, and he asked me the question a third time. What would you do if it was just me and you? And then he said, no parents, no husband, no children, no friends, nobody, just me and you. And I still found myself at a loss for what to say. What are the proper words that you say to God, the creator of everything? I had no idea what those proper words were. And so all of a sudden, and I don't know why this happened, because I've never read, I said something from the Quran. I said, God, your 100th name in the Quran is God is everywhere, God is nowhere, and God is in me. And he said, yes, that's right. Problem is, I never read the Quran, never saw the Quran, didn't know anything about Islam, or nothing. So, but he said, yeah, that's right. And then was looking at the oak tree that was in front of me. It was this big, huge, 10,000-year-old oak tree standing in front of me. And I could see the detail of the bark. And all of a sudden I could see the nutrients being taken out of the ground by the roots, and those nutrients going up the tree and into the leaves. And I could see the little veins in the leaves, and I could see these little round things moving in the veins in the leaves. And then I could see that the leaves, the tree needs the nutrients for the leaves, and the leaves clean the air, and we breathe the air, and everything is connected to everything, and how important each individual part is. And so I said, God, you made this tree. You are in this tree. So when I see this tree, I see you. And he said, yes, that's right. Then I started thinking, and I thought about my parents, and I said, God, you made my parents. You're in my parents. So when I see my parents, I see you. And he said, yes, that's right. And I thought, oh my goodness. So he was getting me to think more. And so I said the same thing about my children. And then I started thinking about the man that I was married to. And it wasn't, I felt hurt because he'd been cruel. And I said, God, there are people in this world who are cruel to other people. They're mean to other people. They hurt other people. But you made these people. You are in these people. So when I see these people, I see you. And he said, yes, that's right. And then he said, I have a question for you. And I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. So he said, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Well, I have been told my whole life that I was fat, that I was ugly, that I was stupid, and that I wasn't good enough. And so I thought to myself, if I look in that mirror, I'm going to see just me. That's it. Nothing special, just me. But I thought to myself, that's not a proper response you give to God. So I said to him, I said, God, you made me, you're in me. So when I look in that mirror, I see you. And he's like, yeah, that's right. And he was so happy. And I felt like I had just gotten an A on a test and had just got home and told my parents, there was so much love. I felt so loved. It was just beyond, and he was so happy that I gave him the right answer. Well, after that was over, these two angels came and they got me and they took me to this lake. There was this big, huge lake, and it looked like glass. It was just so calm. It looked like glass. And I leaned over and I looked down into the water, and I could see the earth below. And I said, well, they showed what they were showing me. It looked, I could see things happening, and it was future world events, things that are happening right now. I saw back then. And they were telling me that some of the things I saw were pretty horrific, and I didn't quite know what to do with them. I'm like, why did he was showing me this stuff? And what am I supposed to do about this? I can't, but what they started telling me was that you can't, these things do not have to happen. The world, and with its collective selfishness, that's what's causing these things to happen. And if people change, these things will not happen. But if they don't change, they will happen. And they have happened.
What are some of the things that you saw that happened already, or that will happen possibly?
Oh, okay. Well, I wrote a book about all this, and I've done a lot of talks, but I didn't share everything that I saw. I have a document that has everything on it, because there was a lot of stuff. But I saw stuff at the very beginning. I saw stuff that was as a result of, or because of what happened in 9/11. I started seeing terrorist attacks against this country and other countries, bombs going off, women and children being used as human shields, people being killed in horrible ways. I saw the earth and earth changes, like earthquakes and tsunamis. I saw 6 big, huge waves hitting the land. And because I'm so terrible at geography, I thought it was just the United States that I was looking at. I'm not sure it was just the United States. It was global, but yeah, I saw these big, huge waves, and they were hitting land. And I saw riots and people running around screaming in the streets, and the police. And I didn't know this until my husband had told me that there was somebody, Ferguson, I think the guy's name, or it was at the town, Ferguson.
town,
Anyway,
yeah.
I saw somebody in a dark outfit throw something heavy through a storefront window, and there was on the opposite side of the street there. I mean, then there was a riot going on, and the opposite side of the street there was like a CVS or a Rite Aid or a Walgreens or some kind of drugstore, and it was on fire. And I hear 3 shots, and of course, and amongst all of that, people are yelling and running and screaming. And I hear 3 gunshots, and there's this man laying dead in the street, and I could see him it was just like a bird's eye view of this whole thing going on. And it wasn't until it was a long time after my husband, when I was explaining it, my husband said, that what you saw right there was that Ferguson thing that happened. Because, I'm not, when these things happen, I'm blown away. I'm just in shock that, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I saw. And so something must have triggered it to me to be able to tell my husband about it. And he said, but I know what that is. That was the Ferguson thing you saw. But I saw, there was a huge, what looked like a silver ribbon. And I knew it was a river. Because if you're flying and you look out the window and you see a river, it looks like a little silver ribbon. And that's what this looked like. But it was big, and it was getting bigger. And it was splitting the United States in two sections. This silver ribbon, which was the Mississippi River. So I saw that.
When you saw,
there was other things.
Yeah. Well, when you saw Jesus, you said that he took a form that made sense to you, or that you could recognize. Have you heard of the Prince of Peace picture that was painted by this little girl? Because some of it that you described sounds like her.
I did not hear of that picture until a few years ago when that movie came here to our town. And it was at the movie theater. And we're sitting, my husband took me to see this movie. Well, I didn't know anything about that picture until we were sitting there, and all of a sudden it flashes across the screen. And I'm like, I grabbed my husband's arm and I said, oh my God. I said, that's God. That's not Jesus. That's God. And I'm screaming this out in the middle of the movie theater. and I mean, that's exactly what I said. And people were just looking at me. I think my poor husband, I think about ripped his arm off. But I was in such shock because that's exactly what God looked like. He had that curly hair and the blue eyes. And But Jesus looked totally different. He didn't look like God. I mean, God chose to appear that way, but he did not look like Jesus. When I saw Jesus, he looked totally different than that. And that's why I kept screaming, "Oh my God, that's God, that's God."
So you're saying like God the Father has a form too, or can take a form like Jesus?
He can take a form.
And
Yes.
did you see both
And
God the Father and Jesus then, or something?
I did. Yeah, Jesus actually walked me over to the wooded glen. And when I sat down, God was already sitting there on the log. He had a stick and he was like doodling or drawing in the pine needles and the dirt that was there. And so I sat down, and when I sat down, Jesus walks away, and I'm sitting there, and I start talking to this man that's sitting there who was God. And that's what he looked like. He looked like that picture that girl drew. So when people ask me that, I have to go into that whole big story that I didn't even know about her. I didn't know anything about that picture until the movie came here to our town and we watched it. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm making a big scene in the middle of the movie theater because of this picture.
But
that's what God looked like.
Well, that's Colton Burpo saw that image when he had his near-death experience, and it was like he was only 3 years old, so he didn't necessarily have a whole lot of preconceived notions, but he saw the painting, the person that looked like the painting that is a Prince of Peace picture. And
right.
Yeah, so I was wondering, you said you heard music. What was the music like? What did it sound like?
It was big music, huge music, like orchestra type music. And I heard voices, the oohs and the ahs, that kind of singing voices. And what I realized was that everything has a vibrational sound. Even colors have a vibrational sound. So when I'm standing in the garden and I'm hearing this music and I'm looking around, and there wasn't a 20,000 piece orchestra sitting in front of me. I heard this music, and I noticed that the flowers had a vibrational sound. The leaves on the trees had a different sound. The water that I saw that was flowing over the rocks, it had a sound, and the rocks had a different sound, and the grass had a different sound. And then you take all of these things and you put them together, it sounds like a giant choir and orchestra. There were stringed instruments and tinkling bells and pianos and horns and drums, and it was the most magnificent orchestra type music. And I heard voices, and they were either humming along with the music or the oohs and ahs of the music or whatever. But I realized that everything and everyone in heaven was singing praises to God. And it was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. I mean, I've tried to find music that's similar to it, and I've come pretty close a couple times to actually hearing what sounds like it. But it was huge. I don't know how to explain it other than this. It's big music, huge music, lots and lots of pieces coming together to make this music. So heaven's a very big place.
So in that near-death experience, is that where you saw the beagle puppy? Because I remember you saw a beagle puppy.
No, that was my third one. Yeah, my third one.
So what happened at the second one? Did they just tell you, did someone tell you had to go back at some point?
Nobody told me. I got to see, I saw the glorious city, and I saw the golden wall that surrounded the glorious city. I got to see buildings on the outskirts of the city. I saw houses up on hills and bluffs, and there were rolling valleys and plains and all of these things. There was a party going on in this one room, and I saw it. I got to stand in the doorway, and I got to watch, and I noticed the decorations and women in the dresses and all that, and the food and how beautiful it was. And I saw where babies go, when babies and children go when they pass, and how they're loved and cared for. I saw a library that had a bazillion books. I mean, I call it the Hall of Knowledge, but I'm not sure that's what it's called. I don't know.
I've heard of
but
that.
It was.
Go ahead.
You've heard of that?
Well, yeah, because I've heard of people refer to it as like the Akashic Records, where the knowledge of the whole world is in that library.
Well, I saw that, and it was a beautiful, but I never saw so many books in my life. I thought, my gosh, you'd have to be here for eternity to read every one of those books. And I saw what I interpreted as a hospital. It looked like a spiritual hospital or something. It was a beautiful building, and there were beautiful healing pools on the outside, and it was the landscaping there is just out of this world. But that's where people go who have traumatic deaths or suicides, and they're gently brought to the awareness of where they are and what's happened. And so it's not a fearful thing. It's a very gentle and loving, caring way to bring people into the awareness of where they are, what happened. So after I saw all that, and I just forgot your question. What was your question?
Oh, I was just asking about when you got sent home, but I had a question too about when you quoted the Quran. Do you sort of get the feeling that like the Bible is divinely inspired, but do you believe maybe like there's other levels of divine inspiration and other works too, such as the Quran, that God is sort of working through different religions and spiritual texts to some degree?
Yes, I do believe that he is. Like I said, I'd never read the Quran. I've never seen it. I know nothing about it. But to quote something like that and to have him say, yes, that's true. I think that he was doing exactly what you said, letting me know that God is bigger than any one particular religion. And so I have told people before, whatever religion brings you closer to God, that is the right one for you. And as far as how God speaks to us, he can talk to us in any number of ways using holy books. And I do believe that the Bible is holy, but I also believe that there are other holy books that he has spoken to people in those books, because God does speak through people. Now, interpretation is totally different, but I do believe that he can speak to us through music, through people, through divinely transcribed books, and the Bible being one, Quran being another. And of course, people have said that that's not true, but I believe it is. Or God would not have had me say it, or at least tell me it was right. I never, when I was living, I never would come up with something that complex. I just wasn't a complex thinker. I was a fixer, run around, take care of my children, clean my house, go to my job.
Well,
my life was very filled up.
Well, it seems like I got the impression that, do you sort of feel like Jesus is God or part of God, and he's the Son of God, that he's connected to the Father? I mean, what were your feelings then or after the experience related to Jesus' connection to God?
You know how I think God is the Father. He's and he doesn't have to have form. He doesn't have to have shape. He's spirit. I think Jesus is the physical manifestation of the spiritual God, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
He's an extension of his Father. When Jesus was living and he prayed to his Father, to the Father, and so that's God. I believe, and if you have children,
mm-hmm.
and you're a father, your son, if you have a son, your son is an extension of you. He has got your DNA running through his veins. He is a part of you, and you are a part of him. And that's the way I look at Jesus and God, that they are, and he's an extension of God. He is the human face. We needed, in the history of our world, we have a habit of, the prophets come and they talk to us, and what do? We don't like what they got to say, so we kill them. And so then God sends Moses, and he says, okay, you guys can't follow 680 some rules. That's impossible. What human can do that? You walk out your door, turn your face to the left, and you've broken some rule, and you end up in some cage with lions jumping at your feet or whatever. So the way, God was like, okay, I'm going to give you 10 things. 10 very simple things. Do this, don't do this. Do this, don't do this. So he gives that to Moses, and he appears to Moses as a burning bush. So I know it's in the Bible that he can appear as anything he chooses. So
yeah, so like in
he
terms
gives
of
Moses. Pardon?
Oh, I was just going to say, so when you talk about like Jesus becoming flesh, it's sort of like the first chapter of John, where it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word became God. And then a few verses later, it says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That sounds like what you're describing.
Right. That's exactly right. I think Jesus and the Father were always together. Always together. Never apart from each other. But we human beings were having a very difficult time trying to understand who God was. We had this opinion that he was some mean old dude in the corner of the sky with a black book, ready to throw us all in hell because we would screw up, and he would mark all these check marks and keep score. And that's not the God I met, but that seems to be the way people were making him out to be. And the religious leaders of the time were using their rules and regulations, and I'm not sure how much of those were man-made rules or how many of those were God-made rules. And there's a huge difference there. And so people were, that we have a habit of not knowing what are we supposed to do and what are we not supposed to do. And a lot of times people will do the very least that they can get by with and think that they can get into heaven that way. If it says you're supposed to do this 10 times, they'll do it 9.5 times because that's the very least that they have to do. to get in. And I think God was saying, that's not what I want you to do. You know, all of this other stuff is not from me. These are not my rules. I'll tell you what my rules are very clearly. So he gives Moses the 10 commandments. Well, that lasts all of 40 days, and they end up falling apart, and they're having this big old party and worshiping idols and everything else. And so Moses comes down with, you know, the tablets, and he says, this is what we're supposed to be doing. What are you doing? And so then God, you know, thousands of years later, we're screwing up again. And so he sends, we don't know who God is by this point. We don't know, is God good? Is God bad? Does he love us? Does he hate us? What is it? You know? So Jesus comes and he shows us who God is. He teaches us who God is by his actions, not by his looks. I mean, he was born as a human being, but he, you know, it was how he lived his life. It was what he was teaching. He was showing us the face of God, that love is who God is. Love is what God is.
So
God doesn't have a face unless he chooses.
So would it be okay if we stopped now and did a part 2, maybe come back in January and do a second part about your 3rd and 4th NDE? Because we're running out of time. So is that okay?
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just hit the stop.